Afternoon, and welcome to today's episode of Light Lunch. I'm joined by Maria and Annie, who I will let introduce themselves. Maria.
Kia ora koutou, ko Maria tōku ingoa. We're coming in from Oricon, and I'm a sustainability consultant there, previous computational designer, and yeah, excited to be here today.
Awesome, thank you. And Annie.
Kia ora, everyone. Yeah, so my name's Annie, and I am the Tamaki Makaurau leader for sustainable buildings.
Lovely. We are going to hear about a few things keeping you guys awake at night within the industry. Maria, do you want to kick us off with something?
Yeah, I'd love to. I've actually had a few conversations this week with like a range of different size businesses working in the circular economy space. And we've all just been wanting to acknowledge the fact that there's pros and cons depending on the size of the business. So, our larger businesses have the resources to be tracking and recording emissions and waste, and our smaller businesses might not. But then our smaller businesses have like a faster pace to change. So, if they're wanting to try out new initiatives, it might be an easier beast to move. But one of the cool takeaways, I think, is kind of hearing from companies like New Zealand Steel to hear how they're sharing their resources with smaller businesses. So all
Oh,
together they can identify like opportunities for waste reuse. So yeah, exciting things happening, but
yeah,
also
that's
acknowledging the
fantastic that they're
barriers.
sharing and teaching each other.
Yeah, no, it's great.
And Annie, what about you?
I guess a big one for me at the moment, and something that I'm heavily involved in, is the pretty sad state of diversity within the industry in terms of employees. So, something I'm very passionate about and quite involved with. So, if you want to get involved or have questions, you can look up AWEC, AWEC on LinkedIn, which stands for Advancing Women in Engineering and Construction, or feel free to reach out to me. But I think it's just really important that both men and women are allies of all minority groups within the industry. And off the back of the research I've done, if there's what my one top tip or what you can do to make a difference, to try and retain people within the industry, is to make sure that everyone feels like they can be themselves in the workplace, no matter their background. So yeah.
We definitely all need to listen to that piece of advice. Maria, something else keeping
Yeah.
you awake?
This kind of builds nicely upon what Annie was speaking about in regards to like allyship and sense of community. I think a lot of us, especially if you're at least in the sustainability space or it's something on your mind, you can get like a lot of fatigue with everything that's going on in the world. And some of us might be, advocating online or in our jobs, and you can end up feeling quite alone or like it's too big of a task. And what I found recently is kind of attending these community like workshops, especially with like International Women's Day or Pride Month that's happening, and being a part of that community really takes the edge off everything. I
Oh,
think
nice.
also, like, I've been going to protests recently for climate change in Palestine, and being amongst other people and seeing other people making the effort, I think makes everything feel like a lot less overwhelming. A lot less overwhelming. Yeah, no, that's correct. So yeah, kind of building on what Annie's saying, like how we can create community and feelings of
Yeah, they
safety is
all come
important.
together, right?
Mm.
Awesome. And Annie,
Um, I guess the next big one for me is climate change, and just reiterating to people and having that feeling that in our work we can make such a difference. I recycle, I buy secondhand clothes. We have very little waste with, by the time we compost and all of that, but that the difference you can make as working in the built environment is so
Mm.
substantial.
Mhm.
40% of global greenhouse gases come from the built environment. So the the opportunity to make a difference to that in your day-to-day job is huge. And I'm not saying to people to stop recycling, because obviously that's equally important. We don't want to add to landfill, but just the huge opportunity we have to make lifetimes of us being on this planet difference by just
Mhm.
reducing the carbon we use in our buildings. And this can be really simple cement replacements, 20% fly ash. Like it's almost a standard thing we should be doing nowadays. Really looking into the EPDs of where you're sourcing your steel from, understanding the carbon cost of transport of steel versus actually sourcing steel from maybe overseas. So there's a higher transport cost, but you're getting it from somewhere that's producing it using an electric arc furnace. So it's much more sustainable.
Okay.
I think just understanding all of these things, like relatively simple things, is really, really important.
Mm.
Yeah, good point. Maria, what else have you got for us?
Also, kind of, we're very in sync today, Annie, kind of building up on this topic of EPDs and yeah, just kind of being alert with what's happening in the industry. I've been doing some research with brands over the past year into basically like the opportunities for more novel low carbon materials in the built environment. We have lots of products kind of slowly being developed and researched. Some have even made it to market in New Zealand that are low carbon alternatives to what we're typically using. Some of these products typically exist in Europe and they just haven't seemed to pick up here. And I think there's definitely some key barriers in place. One of them being is when we're sort of tendering for projects and specifying materials, often these days we're trying to get accreditation for our projects. So we might be looking for EPDs or other sorts of green certification. But lots of these startup companies, at least the smaller ones, actually need a lot of upfront money, sometimes more than $50,000 to go and engage with one of those EPD or life cycle analysis processes. So when they're kind of competing against products which have that capital to go and get those certifications, they're often coming up short. So I don't know what the solution is yet, other than money and funding. But what we can be doing is, especially as designers and as architects, is kind of understanding what new materials are coming up, reaching out to those suppliers and providers to get more information. And maybe until that funding becomes available, we can kind of be coming up with alternative solutions or ways of proving that something's low carbon, but might not necessarily have that green tick yet.
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Annie.
I guess my last one is the big scary topic of New Zealand's infrastructure deficit. Definitely keeps me awake at night, but equally, and I guess personally, I think how important it is that we can't stop spending money in New Zealand, especially on New Zealand's dire healthcare facilities and educational facilities. And I'm definitely not saying that we need to do new builds, because that also, from a sustainability point of view, I don't think is the answer. But adaptive reuse of existing buildings and making what we have better and being a lot better at maintenance of existing buildings in New Zealand is somewhere where I really believe that effort needs to be focused. And
Maintenance is quite key there, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, wow. Okay, let's lighten up a little bit and hear a little bit about you guys. So, Maria, what is something you have either been reading, listening, or watching? It's quite interesting to you at the moment.
This is from running off a recent book club. I'd made a recommendation, Barbara Kingsolver's book called Prodigal Summer. It's from 2000s, but it's super relevant these days. Like you read it and you think it could be sort of commentary on what's going on with climate at the moment. Really great novel, and heaps of people have got back to me saying they loved it. So I'm rereading it um, to remind myself, but definitely can recommend, especially as it gets colder and we're looking for some cozy nighttime activities.
And Annie, is there something you're reading,
Yeah,
listening, or watching
I
that's
just
not
finished.
for your toddler?
Yeah, I just finished Girl, Woman, Other, which if you haven't read, I could not recommend more. for
Oh,
men as well. Incredible book.
I think I've
Um,
seen that floating around the office actually.
oh, highly recommend. One of the best books I've ever read. And then currently watching Love and Death is a bit of a you know, trashy watch on Neon, but to be honest, don't really get much time to watch TV at the moment now that I have a 1-year-old. By the time I get her down and then, you know, eat, it's time for me to go to bed.
No time left.
Yeah.
And what is something that you do for your mental health, Maria?
Mental health. This
Wellbeing.
started by accident. I didn't have curtains for a while, so back in the summer I was like getting woken up by the sun. But then I realized how much nicer it was to get woken up that way as
Mhm.
opposed to alarms. And now we've lost the sun and it's dark again. But I try and spend some time outside in the morning, even if it's just 5 minutes before you rush onto your phone or rush into the
Yeah,
car.
nice. I have a toddler who is scratching at the door at 6 o'clock in the morning saying outside. So we spend a lot of time
There
outside
you
early in the
go.
morning. And maybe it's helping me too, and I didn't even know.
Yeah, they're a well-being advocate.
Yeah. How about you, Annie?
Unmute. For me, it would definitely, so pre-kids, I would say tramping, very into tramping and being outdoors as much as possible as well. Becomes a lot harder once you have a kid to go off into the bush in the weekends.
Yes.
But we still try and do lots of day walks. And for me, reading, like really try and read for half an hour, 45 minutes before bed every night.
Nice.
And yeah, I really love getting into a good book.
Very good. And Maria, what is your motto?
I think mine's quite short. Just kind of trust your gut.
Yeah,
I think
nice.
as I've gotten older, I realize it's often correct, or at least like indicating something. So yeah, trust your gut has been a good one.
Yeah, that is perfect, I think. And Annie?
This again, I keep bringing up parenting, but this definitely comes from parenting, and it's the days can be long, but the years are short. And I
Crazy.
think that is though can be attributed to so many things in life where, the days can feel very, very overwhelming, but reminding yourself that
The big
to
picture.
make the most of every moment because
Mm,
time goes really quick when you look back on it.
that's a really good
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah, I totally feel both of those. Great mottos, guys. And Maria, do you have a piece of advice for the next generation?
Yeah, this is kind of what I'm taking this advice myself at the moment as well. But have some kind of big decisions to make, and I've been really worrying about what's the right one. Not like morally, more like correct.
Mhm.
And someone said to me the other day at the supermarket randomly, they said to me that whatever decision I make is the decision I was supposed to make, and there's no wrong one. That was the
Mhm.
decision, and there'll always be numerous opportunities that come from it. So stop
Absolutely.
wasting time and just make the decision.
So did you make the decision?
No, I penciled that in for Thursday.
Oh, okay. Not thinking about it till then.
Yeah.
And Annie, your piece of advice for the next generation?
I'm sort of stealing a little bit what Mike Evans said on the last light lunch, but it would definitely be to have the confidence to back yourself. I think it's
Mhm.
taken me, I've wasted a lot of time having to pretend to be someone I'm not or not follow my morals and my values because I'm really scared of
Mhm.
losing friends or offending people or things like that. But the older I've gotten, the more I've realized that actually the people I want to be friends with have the same morals and values as me.
Mm,
And if they don't, well, it sounds harsh, but I don't actually need them in my life.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
And also that you can find a workplace that aligns with your morals and your values. And I think I'm really finding how incredibly lucky I am at Oricon to
mm,
feel very supported in that sense. So yeah, I just think the point is to live your
great.
life the way you want, because you'll find colleagues, friends, acquaintances who appreciate you for who you are. But yeah, it is definitely something that I do think comes with experience and age, and we all want to fit in when we're 16, so I
Yeah,
get that,
you
but
kind of just, yeah, make
I just
yourself.
wish it didn't take me till 31 to figure all this out.
Thank you guys. It was awesome.
Thanks, Chloe.
Just a little update from the Institute of Building. We had our Build Up conference last week where we launched our 40th birthday book. So if you're a member, which you should be to be watching this, you will receive one of these in the post shortly, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, and I will see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Chloe.
Thank you.
Kia ora.
Bye.